We sell donuts.
Hey everybody, welcome to Blood and Donuts. I am Tony.
And I'm Chris. What's up, everybody?
Re-Animator. It's a 1985 American comedy horror film loosely based on the 1922 H.P. Lovecraft serial novelette called Re-Animator of the same name, directed by Stuart Gordon and produced by Brian Yuzna. The film stars Jeffrey Combs as Herbert West, a medical student who has invented a reagent which can reanimate deceased bodies. He and his classmate Dan Kane, played by Bruce Abbott, begin to test the serum on dead human bodies and conflict with Dr. Carl Hill, who is infatuated with Kane's fiancée, and he wants to claim the invention as his own.
I was infatuated with her as well. This movie, man, pretty fun, right? It was kind of like, it had that 80s cheese, and I didn't really like chuckle or like laugh until like midway through the movie. And then it was like really just kind of picked up on the comedy aspects of it. It was like kind of half like serious, half comedy to me anyway. And I thought it blended pretty good. It was pretty funny.
Yeah, I really, without getting, you're going to hear our rating a little bit later, but I really liked this film. I enjoyed it. And like you said, it seemed like in the beginning, at the start and stuff, it felt like the production value was very high. And then in places, it feels like it dips really low. It's the weirdest thing, but I love it. I enjoy those aspects of it because, like you said, this is 80s horror right here. This is what you're looking for, and these are the films that I've said this a million times. These are the films that you and I really sought after when we were teenagers. This is what got me into horror. It's movies like this.
Yeah, if we saw the VHS tape of a creepy scientist dude, and it probably has like a little screenshot of the lady on there as well. Looks like she's in danger or something like that. Something we'd be like, yeah, we got to rent that. That's perfect.
Yeah, this is an instant classic. I love Stuart Gordon as a director. You and him, we're going to do this film is his first film, 1985. We're also going to do Dolls next week. Jeffrey Combs as Herbert West in this.
Oh yeah.
He is so funny perfect. And so awesome, isn't he? His dry sense of humor, and there's so many quotable things in here. I mean, like he's breaking the pencils and stuff. I suggest you get a pin, Mr. West. Man, I just really enjoyed it.
Yeah, really funny, man. It was like he was the typical evil villain. It was like he just played it so well. Like you could just tell he had like evil scientists written all over him. And it's crazy, you know, I'm not going to spoil it too much, but you know, he's a bad guy, but he's not I won't say anymore. That'll kind of spoil it, but we'll get into that.
Yeah, I mean,
but he kind of turns out to act as kind of a hero in some parts.
Yeah, so he starts out. His character starts out like you're not really sure. He seems like he's going to be the bad guy, but then you find out he's not. He's kind of like just like a Dr. Frankenstein type for the 80s. Like he's like a new age Frankenstein without the electricity and the electrodes. He's using reagent instead, and he is a narcissist. He is all about science. That's all he cares about. He doesn't care about your feelings. He doesn't care what you're going through, what you have to do, or anything like that. He just cares about this invention, science, and getting it out there and using it on as many things as possible. And he kind of pulls his classmate Dan Kane, who's this doctor, this medical student. It seems like he pulls him into his science experiments, and Dan Kane really like evens the movie out here. I feel like you got this handsome, somewhat normal doctor over here, and then you have this crazy, just off the wall Herbert West scientist, and they just even each other out, and you kind of see Herbert West kind of just like pulling Dan into his direction throughout the movie until the final end. And obviously you know how that goes. I just love it. Dan Cain is like a very handsome, I guess if we were saying Dr. Frankenstein, like an Igor in that respect.
Yeah, it could be. Herbert West also doesn't like your cat either. He doesn't care about it.
He does not care about your cat.
We'll talk about that in the ranking. But yeah, did you see a couple of pretty cool facts too on this movie? The building that was used for the Miskatonic Medical School is the same building as Cyberdyne headquarters in Terminator 2 Judgment Day.
I love that. And on the Terminator references, you'll see a huge swole zombie guy there at the end. He's actually Arnold Schwarzenegger's stunt double in Terminator in a lot of his films. That big swole naked zombie guy.
Like the first one.
Yeah. Who smashes through and anyway. Re-Animator was followed by 2 sequels. You have Bride of Re-Animator from 1990 and you have Beyond Re-Animator from 2003. And I like I said the Frankenstein reference. You got Bride of Animator, which is kind of like that Frankenstein. H.P. Lovecraft was a writer from the 1920s. He did serial. This was like a serial comic, like a horror comic that was then into the public domain. So it kind of just, it was up for grabs as far as like people using that stuff. He is the Necronomicon. He is like famous for writing about that. And Sam Raimi cites H.P. Lovecraft and his writings as inspiration for The Evil Dead. And I see a lot of, obviously The Evil Dead came out in, was it 84?
It was the
year before,
early 80s.
84. Or maybe it might have been 80. I don't know. Gosh, we just reviewed it. I just talked about it. But anyway, I see a lot of like the gore in this. Very Evil Dead-esque. I love the gore in this. It's not scary, but it is a gore fest in that regard. And the practical effects, some of them are not bad.
Yeah, they're not terrible at all. Obviously, we compare a lot of practical effects to like The Thing and stuff. It's not The Thing, but
no.
It's very good. And they use like buckets and buckets of blood.
Yes.
As well. So it was pretty crazy to see.
I would suggest going and watching like a behind the scenes of how they did some of these practical effects, because to see how they accomplish some of these, it's really, really interesting. And I got to watch that of how like because this is it's a B horror film, but it's top tier B horror film. I say that because 1986 comes out Nightmare on Elm Street, right? Was that 86 or 84? And this is
all right. So, first of all, Evil Dead was 81.
Okay. Thank you for looking that up. 81. So it was 4 years before this, and so you have. This is not a Nightmare on Elm Street, but this is this is top tier B horror. You know what I mean? You got really well written characters, and I don't know, just good execution with probably $900,000 I believe was the budget.
And you say like the special effects department. They just they did a great job there too. And back on H.P. Lovecraft, he never really liked his Re-Animator stories, and he only wrote them because he got $5 per installment.
That's crazy.
Yeah.
H.P. Lovecraft, a lot of people don't want to talk about him in history because he was a known racist and misogynist, and a lot of his writings come across as that. So he has pretty much been canceled. So a lot of people don't want to talk. And from reading some of that stuff, it was pretty bad. He was not a good person at all. But he is, obviously he is. I would say that this is probably, if he wrote this in the 20s, this is probably the first zombie. They're not, they're back
brainless
from
monster or something like that. Yeah.
They're very zombie-like in that regard. And, the moans and just like, I don't know. This film was shot primarily in Los Angeles, California. Some scenes were even filmed at the University of California in Los Angeles, UCLA. I thought that was pretty cool.
Cool.
If you ever listened to the music score, you were like me. I was like, that's the Psycho score. They just freaking stole it. And Richard Band created this soundtrack, and he says, yes, I did steal that from Psycho, and I meant to blatantly steal that from Psycho, and then he added some like other instruments in there, like an oboe, some bass, and stuff like that. So really cool.
He vanilla iced it.
Yeah, he vanilla iced the Psycho soundtrack, because I was like, that is Psycho, isn't it? But it's really good. I love the introduction to this with the colored drawings and everything like that.
Yeah,
and that was really good. Like I said,
I like the very last shot too, when it fades to black, but there's still like a little bit of reagent on the screen. I love that. That was really cool.
That's awesome. Yeah, like I said, this film at times the production value seems very high, and then at other times the cat scene is hilarious. Anyway, so I mean, some of the practical effects. This is a horror comedy more than anything. I think they were really going for comedy on this. I laughed. I laughed out loud.
Cheesy that it's funny. It's cheesy and funny. You know what I mean? Like,
yeah.
House at the Edge of the Park. We laugh at that, but they're not trying to.
They weren't trying to be funny. They were going for some comedy here. When you're seeing that doctor walk around headless and like bumping into things and stuff, it's hilarious. It's funny.
Yeah, it's really good.
Do you got some more facts on this?
I had one where David Bowie ran into the cinematographer Mac Ahlberg on another movie set, and he had heard that Ahlberg worked on Re-Animator, and Bowie like ran up to him. It's like, is that true, man? And apparently the guy said it was, and Bowie said that is his favorite film.
Oh, really? The Re-Animator. Yeah. That's hilarious. I love that. Yeah. I can see why. I would put this is like a sleepaway camp.
Yeah. I can see that. It's got a little more structure to it for me than Sleepaway Camp.
Yeah, I can see that.
It's not as just drawn out and long. It's got better pacing for sure than Sleepaway Camp. It doesn't have like a 15 minutes baseball scene in it, you know?
Yeah, I forgot about that. The special effects on Sleepaway Camp were very well done, though. It was very very high tier B horror. Anyway, I'm going to go ahead and get into my rating if that's okay.
Yeah, man.
I thoroughly enjoyed this movie. Horror movies like The Re-Animator are the reason that I got into horror movies. I fell in love with these characters as they were being developed on the screen, especially Herbert West. This movie's goofy, it's funny, it's dark, it's gory, it's shocking at parts, and it's well thought out. You can tell that a lot of care went into these characters. They really stuck to their character throughout the entire movie. And when typically a low budget B horror movies like this, they don't. So they stray. But they did a really good job with sticking to their character. So you could tell that this is really thought out, well thought out, and you probably had some good direction on this as well by Stuart Gordon. Yeah. It's a great take on the Dr. Frankenstein and zombies made with the reagent. I was impressed with the practical effects, and then some of them made me actually laugh out loud, some of the practical effects as well. So, but in a good way. I love that. If you're a horror fan, I believe this is an instant classic. If you are not a horror fan, then you're going to think that this is hot garbage. Whereas, I think Invisible Man, and I think of like Us by Jordan Peele and stuff like that. Those are horror films that I think will cross over, and people who are not horror fans might like those, will probably like those. Whereas this one, this is for the horror fan. For that reason, I'm going to give this a 9 out of 13 donuts. This movie is fun. It's quotable. And like I said, this is an instant classic to be enjoyed with horror friends who love horror. I think Chris and I could sit together and watch this tomorrow. Even though we just watched this, we would love it just as much, and we would have so much fun with it. I enjoyed Re-Animator. Absolutely. 9 out of 13.
Nice, man. Good parallels there. It's a good comparison for the crossover. Like it's not really transcending genres or anything, but it's a it's a fan. What's that word called?
Cult
like
class.
Fan service.
Yeah, this is
a fan service for the horror fan.
Oh yeah, this is it's great.
And we don't compare notes, and we don't, we can kind of get a general feel if we're joking around, but You know, a lot of our stuff parallels. I'll just get into mine too. Great casting and a great lead. Herbert West, his character from Jeffrey Combs. I think he did a great job as kind of the main actor.
Every time he was on the screen,
practical.
every time he was on the screen, I was just like mesmerized by him. I don't know what it was. I was just like, what is this little dork up to? You know what I mean? Like, I don't know. Even he had a laugh. Do you know what was the laugh like?
Oh man, I could don't put me on the spot. I don't know.
It was
Yeah,
like
it was
I was
weird.
just like, what are you doing? I don't know. Sorry. Go ahead. So sorry I interrupted you.
No, you're good. So, yeah, great casting, great lead. The practical effects were awesome. A good story, a fun story, and good comic relief. And it's the good kind of cheesy. It's not just so cheesy it's funny. It's just, you know, it's only cheesy because it kind of aged a little bit, but it's a good comedy film too. The cons, I wasn't a fan of just the crazy ending. Some of the stuff was a little weird there. And some characters in some scenes are dumb. I'm cynical. And they killed a cat like 3 times. But I still had a good time. It's also a 9 out of 13 for me. Gory horror turns into gory fun in this classic. Good acting, great pacing. I think the charm still holds up pretty well today. It's a lot of what I like in horror, and I'll just say it's a lot of what we love in horror. I typed that out, and you practically said the same thing.
That's crazy. Like Chris said, we do not compare notes. We at the beginning of the week we say we're gonna or we have a whole schedule. You're like, hey, all right, just watch this film by the time we are set to record on this day, and we don't compare notes or anything like that. So, I just love so you can just tell that. I mean, we love some of the same horror. So a lot of times our scores and stuff align, and I'm glad you like this. If you didn't, I would have I would have been like, what, man. If you have not seen Re-Animator, I saw it for free on Tubi. And while I was researching Re-Animator, I saw it for free. I didn't watch it, but it was on YouTube. The full version was on YouTube. I don't know if it's the full one that I saw, but a version of Re-Animator was on there. And nice. Yeah, so you can watch it for free. There was some ads if you watch it with Tubi. And so, but I thought that was cool. You don't get a lot of good horror films on for free nowadays. So I thought that was really cool. If you have not seen it, go and see it. It's free. And or if you haven't seen it in a while, go watch it. We're about to go spoil this. Well, let's go ahead and spoil this thing. Yes, sir. Go ahead.
Yeah, if you're sub to this channel or this podcast, you would like this film because it is just the type of horror that makes a good horror movie. So definitely go check it out.
All right, here come the spoils. At a medical school in Zurich, is that what you would say? Zurich, probably. At a medical school in Zurich, Switzerland, a dean is called in to investigate a disturbance in one of the labs. When he enters with a policeman and nurse, they find that one of the school's professors, Gruber, screaming in agony, and a med student, Herbert West, with him. Gruber's skin has turned purple and his eyes are bulging until they actually explode, spewing blood. The stricken man falls dead, and the dean asks if West had killed the doctor, to which West replies, "No, I gave him life."
It's pretty funny too. I watched with the wife, and she was like, "You're gonna have to turn on subtitles. They're speaking in German." And sure enough, the subtitles were also in German. It was just German lingo, translated. It was just German.
Just showing that they're in or Switzerland at that point, that's hilarious.
Really funny.
Yeah. So this practical effect. So you got the. Obviously, there's some kind of commotion that shows a university. You hear screaming. People are running through the hallways. This nurse, these policemen, they're like, "Open the door, Dr. Gruber, open the door!" And you're hearing him scream, and you're wondering what's going on. They open it up, and there's Gruber convulsing on the floor. Herbert West is by his side, and he stands up, and you see the first good practical effect. You're seeing this like his face is like pulsating, his eyes blow, and then they blow up, and it's such a good introduction to a movie. I was just like, I think I'm gonna like this.
Yeah, it's pretty crazy how they pulled off all these effects. Like it just, it looks like later on there's a head walking around, and then it looks like This guy's eyes are bulging while he's frantically walking around, and then they just explode. But it's a pretty great practical effect movie.
And something else that I want to add, like a free movie on Tubi, this B horror movie, which is again top tier. The filming, it didn't look grainy, it didn't look old and stuff. It was very high quality film, I feel like, and so it felt like I was watching a high quality feature. And some horror films, which are good, they start off very slow. And you have to wait. You might be 35, 40 minutes in. You're getting a story and all this stuff. And this doesn't do like that. This punches you right in the face right off the bat. And I love that about this. It's an hour and 25 minutes, and you're already getting big storyline. You know that
exploding eyeballs.
You know that Herbert West is somebody to look after, and you know that this to look at, and then you know that this film is going to have some crazy gore and some practical effects. So I was excited about it.
Yeah.
First scene. Herbert West arrives at Miskatonic University in New England in order to further his studies. He rents a room from medical student Dan Kane and converts the house basement into his own personal laboratory. There is instant animosity between West and faculty member Dr. Carl Hill, played by David Gale. I think David Gale did a great job as Dr. Carl Hill. He seemed like a very seasoned actor in this.
He did. It was a little weird. It seemed like he was a little too old for Dan's love interest, you know.
I think that's what made it. I think they
creepy.
They wanted to make you feel uncomfortable and stuff. And and there's a scene in this that kind of harkens back to that Evil Dead tree sexual assault. You know, that one, it's like a scene that and maybe this was something in the 80s that was like, hey, we're going to really shock our audience. And you know what? Terrifier, when they saw that girl upside down, when he saws her upside down, you kind of, you go, this didn't have to be in there, but this is in here to shock me. And it's for me to remember this film by. And so, it happens a little bit later in this, and he's a part of that.
Especially in the 80s, you know, everybody was trying to outdo each other with the slashers and stuff. So, I mean, this isn't really a slasher, but it's more of a sci-fi. But yeah, it's still got plenty of gore.
I mean, with The Thing and Evil Dead and stuff. I mean, like the 80s had a lot to live up to, and even Nightmare on Elm Street, all that blood coming out of the bed and stuff like that. Yeah. The 80s were a special decade for horror films. You know,
it really was.
The 90s, they're not. It's not my favorite always. It's you know, I don't know. We're gonna do some more 90s films, and there's some good ones. There's some hidden gems in there, but there's something special about the 80s. West declares that Hill stole the theory of brain death from West's late mentor, Dr. Gruber. Hill vows that West will never get a passing grade in his class. Okay. I feel like that skips over a lot, and it's very, very generalizing as far as that goes. But
it does. But yeah, you can tell that West is just like he's just like bad news.
Yeah.
You can tell he's the villain. You can tell he's just up to no good. It's just everything about him looks evil. He plays it so good.
Yeah, he does. But I think it's very important to talk about like Dan Kane's character, how it opens up there at the hospital. Dan Kane is trying to save the life of this lady who's on a table, and he's just doing CPR relentlessly to the point where he's just got sweat all over him. And he's obviously a resident doctor, not quite a doctor yet, because there is a real doctor standing there, and she's like, Dan, Dr. Kane, she's dead. And he's like, oh, she's just gotta have time for the medicine. And he's just, he just wants to save her. He wants to save her life. And he's like putting his heart into it and stuff like that. And, the movie's called Re-Animator, they reanimate and stuff. So it's cool that it shows Dan, who's going to meet up with Herbert West a little bit later in the film, that Dan is a guy who wants to save lives. He's a doctor who loves what he does, and he obviously wants to save people. And so if you run into a Herbert West, you can see why he might come under Herbert West spell, in that universe.
Yeah. You have like a good guy, Dan. You have him. He's like good natured, good hearted. He just wants to save a life. And you have
handsome too.
Herbert West, who's just very like just shady looking and ominous looking.
Yes,
it's a good balance.
And Dan Cain's very handsome guy.
Handsome Dan.
Yeah, and then you see him in the hallway. His girlfriend comes up and he starts kissing her, and he's like, "No," she's like,
handsome too.
Yeah, like no, and then it breaks into them just full on just doing
just
it,
going to
town there in the bed, and it's a funny transition because she's like, "No," and then it cuts, and she's like, "Yes." So I kind of laughed at that. That was funny, and and then you see Dan's cat jump on his back to stop it. So that's the only time that you get the introduction of the cat, which is going to be important a little bit later. Because I was just like, because if not, you'd be like, oh, he had a cat. That's how they introduced the cat.
Yeah, I can see that.
Dan has been carrying on a love affair with Barbara, daughter of Miskatonic's medical school dean, Dr. Halsey. Barbara and Dan know that if her father finds out about their relationship, Dan could be expelled. He knows that they are engaged because they talk about that at the table. So it's not the
why would he be mad about his love affair?
It's not the relationship that they're talking about. It's like if he's mad about like that she's spending the night, that they're doing.
Yeah, she's getting the ding ding without the wedding.
That's
ring.
what I'm saying. Yeah, not only that, she her dad wants him to finish medical school and be a doctor before they get married. That's one of his rules.
Just full disclosure here, I did not gather any of that.
Oh, you did not.
I did not.
I don't know where I got that from. I think it's like he was talking about it with the doctor at the table, or he talked about it with her at some point. But yes.
Yeah.
Dan also discovers that West has reanimated his dead cat Rufus with a glowing reagent. West recruits Dan as his partner in research to defeat death. Dan's fiancée Megan dislikes West, especially after discovering that Rufus reanimated in a state of dismemberment.
This movie, so as we were watching it, I was like, well, that's minus a donut. Oh, they brought it back. I guess that's plus a donut back. Oh, they killed it again. Okay, it was a lot to keep up with.
Yeah.
You know me and cats, man. You can't kill a cat. Come on.
Dr. Hill and the dean they're having dinner over at the dean's house, and Dr. Hill finds out that the dean's daughter is dating Dan. And he doesn't like that because he has an infatuation with her. And he said, do you think that that's a good idea? And like, and he seems, it's very creepy. It's very weird. And like, he makes a toast and she's kind of creeped out about the whole thing. And then she goes over to Dan's house and they're making out and he's trying to do stuff. And she goes, no, just stop. And she's like getting upset because she's like really creeped out about the whole conversation that she just witnessed, where Dr. Hill was kind of like staring her down and looking at her and stuff like that. And then out of nowhere, she starts talking about his roommate, Herbert West. She's like, I don't like your roommate. He has a weird vibe. He's all of these things. Plus, where's your cat at? We haven't seen your cat and how long? And then they start looking around for the cat. And it's like this, that's a weird scene because they're just like, and they do that for a few minutes. It's very drawn out, this search for this cat. Yep. And I mean, like, I think it takes like 7 minutes. They're just like going around. They're doing
it's not that bad.
And then they go and
it's not sleepaway camp baseball game.
It's it's drawn out. And then they go into she goes into Herbert West's bedroom, and there is the cat in the refrigerator. And Herbert West comes in. He says, why are you in my room? Get out of my room. And then he looks at Dan. He said, I was paying for privacy. I didn't know you were going to let people come into my room. And Dan's like, my cat is in your refrigerator. What are you doing? And he's like feeling his pulse, the cat's pulse. The cat is definitely dead. And he's like, you killed my cat. He goes, I didn't kill it. I found it. He was suffocating. He goes, why didn't you tell me? He goes, what am I going to do? Leave a note saying your cat's dead? I want to tell you in person. He's like very dry and very like to the point and just like and very narcissistic. He just like, he has no empathy for anybody. He's just like, yeah, it's a cat, whatever. And then, it's a weird scene, right?
It's funny because like you're saying, like, what am I gonna do? Leave you a note? Your cat's dead. What's for dinner or something like?
Yeah.
It's something funny like
It,
that.
it was hilarious.
Yeah.
And so like Dan is sleeping that night and he's hearing these weird growls and screams, like, coming down from the basement, like, and he goes down there and Herbert West is fighting with this cat on his back and it's hilarious. He's just like, get him, get the cats on my back or whatever.
The cat's just like stuck there in one position.
And they have this hilarious, great scene where there's like this one light swinging in the basement, catching them in the darkness, like swinging across them as they're searching for this cat that's going to be in the distance and stuff. And this puppet cat is it's the worst effect in the whole movie, but it works because it's hilarious. It's like this puppet cat that looks it's just awful. But anyway, they get it on a table and he has reanimated this cat. They threw it up against the wall and Herbert West is like, you got to help me. I reanimated your cat. You just saw it firsthand. He goes, no, you didn't. He wasn't dead. He just can't. He's like, what if I reanimated him right now while he's like in pieces, like literally in half? And he's like, would you believe me then? So he like puts it in the cat and he says, like, he goes, well, don't expect him to do the tango or anything. He, like his back is broken or something like that. But then the cat comes alive. And so Dan is now a believer. And then Dan goes straight to the dean the next day and tells him. Yeah. Well, I hated that scene
too. I mean, West is like, or the cat's like screeching and stuff, and he's like, "What's wrong with it?" And West is like, "Well, birth is always painful," or something like that.
Oh,
it's
yeah.
Like, it still feels like a serious movie up to this point. It's later on with Dr. Hill.
Yeah.
That it gets really funny.
I thought the cat on the back and stuff like that was funny. I thought that was hilarious.
I mean, it was comically, for the effects and stuff, it was funny.
And when
I still felt like it was trying to be a serious movie.
Bill manages to turn Dr. Halsey against both West and Dan. Barred from the school, West and Dan sneak into the morgue to test the reagent on a human subject, an attempt to salvage their medical careers. That's what. So Dan goes the next day to the dean, and he's like, "Hey, let me. This is what I witnessed. I saw this last night from my own eyes." And the dean is just like, "I cannot believe you. I would have expected this out of West, but you engaged to my daughter. You're doing this." He goes, "By the way, West is kicked out, and you lost your financial support." Starting tomorrow.
Yeah, that's crazy. Like just like that. No explanation, no whatever.
It breaks your heart.
That's one of those where it's kind of like, okay, whatever. I guess they had to keep the movie story moving along,
Well, when I saw that, I was like, man, I hope he becomes a zombie and has to get reanimated, because I don't like him.
Yeah, me too.
So West and Dan, they decide to break into the morgue, which, by the way, the morgue is like guarded by the worst security guard that the world has ever seen, because everybody breaks into this morgue 17 times during this movie, and he just lets all of them.
He's like looking at like a porn magazine or something. It's like, it looks like some softcore porn,
including
bikini edition or something.
Including a headless guy later. He breaks in,
with a fake head on. That's so funny.
All right, so the corpse that they revives and goes on a rampage, attacking the duo. Halsey stumbles upon the scene originally to force them out of the morgue for trespassing, and despite attempts by both West and Dan to save him, he's killed by the reanimated corpse that Arnold Schwarzenegger.
Yeah, that's the one.
He goes through this door, this big metal door, and just like crushes Halsey right there.
You can hear the crunch. The subtitle said crunch.
Armed with a bone saw, West dispatches the reanimated cadaver, unfazed by the violence and excited. West goes and gets that bone saw and sticks it right through his chest. That's a cool effect too.
Yeah, that was pretty good.
Unfazed by the violence and excited at the prospect of working with a freshly dead specimen, West injects Halsey with the reagent. Halsey returns to life, but he's in a zombie-like state.
Yeah, this is what we've already kind of talked about, the stuff I was going to talk about with the security guard and didn't really get why they were kicked out of school and stuff like that. But it's a fun scene just to see. Wes is just so excited about like a fresh corpse. He's like, we got to get to work on it, right? Like he's got to, like we got seconds. Let's, why are you still standing there in awe that this guy's dead?
Yeah.
Help me get the reagent in him.
Yeah, he's literally like screaming like we literally have every minute matters. He does not. The only thing that Herbert West cares about is this science experiment. He does not care about people's feelings. He doesn't care about your trauma. He doesn't care about what you just saw. He's like, shake it off. I don't care. Let's do this. We only have minutes here. So he's just reagent. He's just putting it in everybody at this point. And Hill discovers that West's work. So Dr. Hill discovers what West was doing, the reagent and all that stuff. And he gains guardianship over Halsey, whom he puts in a padded cell adjacent to his office. Dan and Megan break into Hill's office where they find evidence that Hill is obsessed with Megan and has lobotomized her father. Hill has gone to confront West in his basement lab and threatens to blackmail him to continue his research so that Hill can take credit for West's reagent.
All right, this one I didn't get because he's just like, Dr. Hill's like, I own you now. And Wes is just like, damn, you got me. Okay. Like, because he's like, I'm going to tell everybody about this. And then Wes doesn't want his secret to get out. So he's just like, okay, I'll do whatever you want. I thought that was kind of weird.
But then he kills him with a shovel.
Well, yeah, that's up in the next scene.
Oh, but yeah. I mean, that's what I'm saying. Like, I knew, like, when Hill did that and Wes was like, here, take it. I knew Wes was not going to go that easy. It's freaking Herbert West. I knew that, like what was Hill thinking messing with Herbert West is what I was thinking. I was like, are you that stupid? This dude will freaking, he does not care, And and
but a little bit later you see that Hill is kind of like a badder guy. He's kind of like a bigger bad than West is.
Yeah. He's a bad guy, but when he gets injected with that stuff, he becomes really bad. He doesn't become a zombie. He is a zombie, but he becomes like a little bit. He can talk and stuff, which is weird.
Yeah.
Anyway, Dr. Hill, he takes the dean, Halsey, and he says, I'm going to take care of your father. I'm going to see why he's acting like this and see what's going on. And he actually lobotomizes him. He like drills a hole in his brain. And the movie doesn't really explain, and that's okay, that he can kind of like mind control Halsey.
Yeah, with like a lobotomy or a laser lobotomy.
Yeah, but he does it with other zombies later in the film, and it doesn't say that he lobotomized them either, but I don't know. It does show in the beginning of the film that he is lobotomizing somebody. He's drilling a hole with this like laser tool. And anyway, so he goes down to the basement and he finds Wes, like you said, and he's like, like, you're gonna have to hand it over and it's gonna be all mine. And he looks under the microscope and he discovers West's work and then while Hill is distracted, West hits Dr. Hill with a shovel and decapitates him. Overcome with curiosity, West then reanimates both Hill's head and his body. While West is questioning Hill's head and taking notes, Hill's body knocks him unconscious. The body carries the head and steals West's reagent, returning to Hill's office. Exercising mind control over Halsey, Hill sends him out to kidnap Megan from Dan.
Man, I just love how goofy. Now it's like full on goofy for me, and I love it. He's like walking around with his head. Doesn't he I don't think he flips him off with his body, but he does something like he's motioning to go get like some blood, and then he pours like a bunch of blood in that pan.
And he's just like, oh.
Then he can just like, like his head's
like
just
he's got something,
blood.
like he got something to drink. If anything, that doesn't make sense is why Dr. Hill didn't kill West right here. He just knocks him out. And so, like, if you're going to steal the serum, if you're going to steal his, why did you take your head and leave? Like, you're such a bad guy later. That's the only thing that doesn't make sense to me. You just knocked him out and left. But it is a movie, so whatever. There's a head in a pan, like a restaurant pan that you would put lasagna in or something like that. And they're carrying that around. It looks pretty legitimate. It looks good.
It's pretty fun. Yeah, it looks good too. That's the thing. It doesn't just look horrible. It looks like it could happen or whatever. It looks like it's just perfectly sitting in there.
And the body,
and he's also like in the table. So like I mean, I know they had to cut a hole in a table and stuff like that, but so they had a table and they had a pan and then a table later. So they really kind of moved him around a lot in that headless state.
yeah. And so the headless body's just kind of carrying him around, and like, but he's like he's not really a good walker, and that the head is not talking too well either. He's like, hey,
Yeah.
It's like, I don't know, just like very creepy like that. West and Dan track Halsey to the morgue, where they find Hill's body holding his head in a compromising position over a restrained Megan. So maybe we stop there and talk about that.
Yeah, we can dive into that a little bit.
Dr. Hill is obsessed with Megan.
Mm-hmm.
They find
and he pretty much just, he's assaulting her there with his head.
The craziest scene ever. They just like strap Megan there, and they just strip her, and he's going to town on her, like, and like really sexually assaulting her with his head, and then like he's about to do what you think with his head in the head, giving head, and until they break in and say, "What are you doing?" It's the weirdest. It's just very shocking in that regard. And I saw the actress talk about that. She said she felt very comfortable during that scene. She knew what it was. She was in on the joke and stuff, and she thought it was funny. So I don't think it was like anything like like weird for her. Again, she was 26 years old at the time. She wasn't 18 or like a little, what I mean. So she was an adult and very consenting and stuff. So just a weird, shocking 80s scene that you're like, what are we doing with this? And it was kind of funny too, in that regard, because he's just a head.
Just like, is he about to do that?
Is that what Jessica said?
And then when they finally stopped, she's like, okay, I was about to say, like, it was pretty funny.
Oh my gosh. Wes distracts Hill while Dan frees Megan. Hill reveals that he has reanimated and lobotomized several corpses from the morgue to do his bidding. However, Megan manages to get through to her father, who fights off the other corpses long enough for Dan and Megan to escape. But this is after a very long, drawn-out battle with these naked zombies.
I thought I did like the part where he's like, why would you come all this way just to die? And he's like, what are you gonna do? Like, it's only one of you. And he's like, is it? And then like they all sit up at the same time. I thought that was a cool like final boss form for
it was.
Hill. And I liked how the your evil Dr. West, he turned out to be kind of like a hero in this part where he's helping Dan kind of get away. He's fighting off the zombies for Dan and stuff like that. He's not just, he's worried about his notes and stuff, but he's also trying to save Dan and Megan from Dr. Hill.
Yeah, I see that. And I like that. And so this is just a goofy part. Like, it's just like it runs on for probably about 10 minutes. It's just like fighting off zombies, running all over the place. It's just chaos all over. There's chemical burns. There's all kinds of things, but it's well done in some place. Like as much as they can. This is where it looks very B horror.
Yeah, and it's going to talk about in this next scene, but like the Dr. Hill's body is just sitting there, and then his like rib cage opens up, and his intestines come out and grab West.
Yes. Does he get injected again? Is that what happens? Or
I think.
Oh yeah. It gets poured on to him while he's like in pieces. In the ensuing chaos, Halsey is torn to pieces by the corpses after he destroys Hill's head. And West injects Hill's body with what he believes is a lethal overdose of the reagent, which begin to destroy Hill's body. Hill's body mutates horribly and then attacks West This is where the intestine just kind of like wraps itself around West. Like this is very like The Thing in that regard.
Yeah, it was at this point. I have you can only suspend your disbelief so long. This is really just where I was like, okay, we're going a little crazy movie. Everything else could have happened so far.
None of this could have happened, Chris. He was holding his head for about 30 minutes of this movie. Hill's body mutates. I told you that. West screams out to Dan, "Save my work," as he continues fighting. He's dragged towards the monstrosity. His fate is unrevealed.
You know, I think, and I know there's a sequel and stuff, but I felt like a good final scene would have been like West is still in the morgue and he's won. You know, he's survived and he's about to die though, so he kind of injects himself with the reagent.
Oh,
you know,
I like that.
And then that's kind of like the final scene. I thought that would have been cool.
That would have been great because like we've seen it when they're dead or decapitated, but we haven't seen it when you're almost dead.
Yeah, like when you're about to die, like maybe you're gonna fall. You know, when your arm falls when you're dead, it's gonna inject it or something into you. You know,
and then it's like Popeye eating spinach. You know, he ejects it.
Yeah.
It's like dun, dun, dun.
He like goes through his whole body. Big biceps with ships start popping out. And sorry.
I like that. And then he beats him. That's good. Dan retrieves the satchel containing West's reagent. As Dan and Megan run from the morgue, one of the reanimated corpses attacks and kills Megan. Dan takes her to the hospital emergency room and tries in vain to revive her. In despair, he injects her with the reagent. Just after the scene fades to black, Megan screams, implying that her reanimation has backfired. Bum, bum, bum.
Dang. Well, he probably wouldn't have had to use the reagent if he didn't have to run down the whole damn hallway to get a fire axe.
I have that as well in my notes. Like she's getting strangled by a zombie, and instead of like fighting off, he goes and he leaves.
He's like, Eureka, and then
he goes and gets an axe and then he chops the zombie up. But I mean, she was getting strangled for 17 minutes while he was running.
She was already blue by the time he got back.
Yeah, why wouldn't he like shoving his thumbs down the corpse's eyeballs? You know,
I thought that a couple of times too, like with Hill's head, and she's got her hand on his head. I'm like, come on, just poke his eyes,
poke those eyes.
And they are. I would not want to go to this hospital. They are quick as hell to pronounce you dead.
Yeah.
The nurse,
that was hilarious at the end.
And she's like, just call it. We can't do anything.
Yeah,
it's over, Dan.
They just got her into the room and she's like, Dan, look at me. It's over.
He didn't even get to try as long as the first one. Like they at least like let him try harder on the first lady.
Dan, stop.
Dan, your fiance is dead.
It's been 27 seconds. Stop. Hilarious. So good.
Funny.
And that being said, I like an ending, like you said. I like a good ending that just like, you know, he's like the room's empty, like they're giving him some minutes with Megan, like to say his goodbyes, and then he looks down at the notes and he looks at the reagent and he goes, you know, and he goes and injects her, and then it fades to black and you hear her screaming. So it sets it up for a sequel pretty well. I don't think this has to follow this exactly, because this is like comic book type stuff, and that's where it spawned from. So I don't think everything has to be perfect and continuity and all that stuff for this to work in the sequel.
Yeah, and honestly, after watching this, I mean, how good this was, I wouldn't mind watching this sequel. You know, Bride of Freedom. It sounds goofy, but if it's anything like this one, I would probably find it enjoyable, because I mean, I had a good time with this one.
Sequel September, man, it's coming up quick. Might have to add it. You know,
we already had some movies in there, but I might change mine around a little bit.
I love that. Anything else? Final thoughts?
No, I think it's definitely worth a watch. If you've made it this far, we've already kind of spoiled it. I mean, we don't really do it justice. We try to go scene by scene and talk about it and kind of add our own quirky jokes to it. But this is still a very fun watch. So definitely check it out if you haven't already.
Absolutely. We'll see you next time. Thanks.
Yeah, thanks.